Welcome back to This Day in Scottish History. I'm your host, Colin MacDonald. Today we head back to March 6th, 1457, when Scotland's Parliament, under the rule of King James II, issued a surprising decree, one that banned the playing of golf. Yes, you heard that right. The game, now known as Scotland's national sport, was once considered such a nuisance that the king felt compelled to outlaw it. But why? Let's dive into this peculiar moment in history. And if you're keen to explore more fascinating events that happened on this day, check out my blog at https://bagtownclans.com/thisday. The link will be in the description. By the mid 15th century, Scotland was a land of turmoil and tension. The kingdom was frequently at odds with England, and military preparedness was of utmost importance. In those days, archery was the backbone of a strong army. Skilled longbowmen could decide the outcome of a battle, and regular practice was essential. However, a problem had emerged, one that was frustrating the authorities. Across the bergs and countryside, young men were increasingly distracted from their archery training. Instead of honing their skills with the bow and arrow, they were spending their time playing games like football and, more alarmingly, golf. The government saw this as a serious issue. If Scotland were to defend itself against English aggression, every able-bodied man needed to be ready for war. So, on March 6th, 1457, King James II and his Parliament took action. The Act declared that football and golf were to be utterly condemned and stopped because they interfered with military training. Instead, the king commanded his subjects to practice archery every Sunday and on holidays. The law was strict, and those caught playing golf instead of training risked severe penalties. The government even instructed town officials to enforce the ban, making sure young men were practicing their marksmanship rather than swinging clubs at a ball. This decree is one of the earliest recorded references to golf, proving that the game was already widely played in Scotland at the time. While we might think of golf as a refined pastime today, back then it was far from the structured sport we know. Early versions were rough and unregulated, played in open fields or along coastal dunes with rudimentary clubs and balls. The game was unpredictable, rowdy, and clearly popular enough to warrant the king's intervention. Despite the law, the ban was difficult to enforce. Golf continued to be played, sometimes in secret, sometimes openly defying the authorities. In fact, similar bans had to be issued again in 1471 and 1491, proving that the Scottish love for the game was not easily extinguished. By the time of King James IV, in the early 16th century, attitudes had begun to shift. James IV himself was known to have played golf, and by the late 1500s, the ban was largely ignored. Over the next few centuries, golf evolved into a more formalised sport, with St Andrews becoming the game's spiritual home. By the 18th and 19th centuries, Scotland had firmly embraced golf as a national pastime, with courses springing up across the country. What was once a distraction from military training became a source of national pride, attracting players from around the world. Today, Scotland is known as the birthplace of golf, with its legendary courses drawing enthusiasts from every corner of the globe. It's almost amusing to think that this beloved sport was once seen as a threat to national security. So next time you tee off, take a moment to remember that there was once a time when swinging a golf club could have landed you in trouble with the law. The very game that was once outlawed has become an enduring symbol of Scotland's sporting heritage. Thank you for joining me today on This Day in Scottish History. I hope you've enjoyed this trip back in time to a moment when golf was considered more trouble than it was worth. Don't forget to check out my blog for more historical events at https://bagtownclans.com/thisday. Tune in tomorrow for another tale from Scotland's rich past. I'm Colin MacDonald. Haste you back.